Hi guys, so for the last couple of months, a ton of work has been going on in this shop. And I'm in the process of making a video that's going over the complete changes from garage into the shop. But before getting to that point, I really wanted to tackle a bit of shop organization, and in particular, the wires and the hoses and the electrical stuff relating to the dust collection. It easily becomes a huge mess. I also wanted to go over a little bit of repurposing all work surfaces and tables and getting more storage and just getting a bit more organized. So that's what this video is going to be all about. So this past year has been a really big year because I've added a lot more powerful tools to the shop that produce a lot more dust, that need a lot more power. And one thing about having these tools in place is that you really want to make sure that the dust collection is also set up for the situation. And I am just kind of in the process of getting everything situated. And up to this point, I've had wires on the floor, hoses everywhere, and it's been kind of a big mess. So I really wanted to create a solution where I would get things off the floor. Currently, I have dust collection in the corner over there. That may change at some point, but that's where it is right now. And I want to be able to use it for the table saw, the bandsaw, the jointer, and the planer, as well as the lathe all the way over there. So I was thinking about how to do that in the most effective and easy way. At the same time, I don't want to create like a very permanent situation. A lot of people, put up a lot of piping all over the shop. And while that is, very effective, I'm not sure if I want to create a super permanent situation. I like to be able to change things over time. What I wanted to do was to have a run over the table saw over to the lathe. In order to do that, I installed these ceiling tracks. And these have different attachments to it. I have these large hooks coming down. Which fit this 4-inch pipe perfectly, and it holds it in without being permanent. I can move it around if I wanted to, but it also holds it up really nicely. And I was able to utilize these flexible hoses and connect them to the pipe with these adapters, and I even have blast gates so that it's more effective. So there are a lot of different parts when you're setting up this system, like connecting parts, and it can be rather confusing, like what fits into what. So I wanted to go over the parts that I'm using to set up this system. And I'm mostly using 4-inch pipe for the main dust collection here. This is called a 4-inch worm gear clamp, and this connects in the back on all the machines to the dust port. So you can cinch it in place, and then this tool right here is what connects the dust hose. And then this connects to the hose with the hose clamp. So you're gonna need at least the amount of tools that you have of this fitting right here. Now this is called a threaded dust fitting clear hose 4-inch diameter. This I use on multiple areas. If you have a Y connector of a sewer pipe and you want to bring that down to the hose, then you can use this connector right here. Now this part right here screws easily onto the hose. So I would get quite a few of these for your setup, depending on the amount of hoses that you're using. Obviously, you're gonna need as many blast gates as you have areas that you want to shut off. And I'm using 3 main blast gates for 3 different sections to control. The other thing is if you want to connect a smaller hose, this is a 2 1/4, to a larger hose, this is a 4-inch, then you need a reducer fitting. So this is a 4 to 2 1/4 extended adapter. And this goes in quite nicely. Here, you can cinch this on with the connector. So you'll obviously need quite a few of these connectors, and for the smaller hoses, I'm using these ones. Now your system may look different and you may need different things depending on your situation, but these are the main ones that I found to be very useful in setting the system up. Dust collection in the lathe can of course be a little bit tricky. I'm of the opinion that you can't expect it to get everything, but if I can capture sawdust and shavings to some degree, I'd be very happy. So what I did was to attach this dust collection arm over the lathe and have it positioned at this angle here And then this is connected to that hose. There is one of the ceiling tracks up in the ceiling with one of the hooks, and it goes all, you know, down there. And then like some sort of hook situation. I found that it's definitely more effective if it's a little bit angled, and I think I might move the lathe out a little bit more, and then I can angle that even more, because if you're fighting gravity, you're not getting as good a result. But it is remarkably effective for actually getting decent sized chips, which is pretty cool. And you could also move this depending on what you're doing. Or if you're turning something large, you can also move it out of the way. So once I was able to get dust collection going over the lathe, let's go back over to the other tools, and then I'll show you guys what that looks like. Now the jointer and the planer produce just a lot of volume of chips when you use them. So I wanted a direct line from the dust collector over here. So here's the hose coming from the dust collector, and this I can move around depending on where I need it. I can put it on the planer here, or I can put it in the jointer. I never do, use these machines at the same time, so that is really easy. And I can also put it in the bandsaw right here, as well as in the table saw. I have a Y connector right here, also connected to blast gates, so that it could go to either one. And the thing when you're dealing with all of these fittings, sometimes it feels like it's a bit of a puzzle getting everything connected in the right way. And sometimes you kind of have to play with everything to see what's going to fit. And I have found that sometimes if you have something that is maybe just a little bit big, what you can do, I need to do that here, but you can attach some painter's tape on the side, and that really helps to stiffen things up. The other thing that I also use this run for right here is I have connected to this one. One of the rules of the shop here is I do not sweep, because that kind of creates dust in the air. So instead what I do is that I have this, I connect the hose to this attachment right here, and that creates like a vacuum cleaner instead, so it sucks it up, and that is quite effective. But I really do like being able to have this one and just plug it in wherever I need to use them. I can use it for the vacuum, or I can connect it here, which is the table saw or the lathe, or go over there, and then it's the jointer or the planer. Of course, most of the time it is hooked up right here, because the table saw is by far the primary tool, and that is what I use the most. Over on this area here, I have a couple of smaller tools set up, and it doesn't really make much sense, not really that necessary to have the big dust collector over there, just to use the drill press real quick. So what I have here is that I have all of these machines, the drill press and the small bandsaw and the sander. I have them all set up with hoses in the back with blast gates, so that I can control it. And then I'm just using a shop vac with a 2-stage system, so that I can do a little sanding real quick, or use the bandsaw, and I have dust collection, but it's not like a big deal. You don't have to have the big dust collector on. In the back here, I have a lot of this 2.5-inch piping with this 2.5-inch blast gates, and this kind of flexible hose here that I like to keep when I use the drill press, because that way I can, it gets a lot of dust and a lot of shavings out of here, which is rather nice. I have these connected in the back here with some plastic strapping, and these Y connectors and things, so that they all run on the same system. This is a 2-inch hose, but it funnels into this 2.5-inch hose, because that's the size of the blast gates. So like a lot of things in the shop here, this bench is on wheels. Just makes it easier to get back here and work on things and set everything up. Of course, it is attached to the wall, so at this point I don't want to take it out too far unless I take it out from the tools. So here you can see the blast gates right here, and the connectors. And again, like if something doesn't fit just perfectly, just putting a little bit of tape on one of them, and it makes it really nice and snug. And then, yeah, this one is loose, so that I can just kind of move that to wherever I need it. All of the tools use 240 power, and when upgrading the service, we got the outlet situated right here. And That's because I'm not really sure exactly where I want to keep everything at this point. And before running conduits and getting outlets like in the ceiling and at different places, I have this solution right now, which is working really nicely, where I'm running 240 extension cords up in the ceiling again, in these tracks and in these little loop holders. So that way I have cords going here, and I can just use these to plug in the machines, whichever one that I'm using. Again, it's off the floor, and it's rather organized, and it's working for now. But in the future I might change that. It's not really like a very permanent situation, but it's quite nice at the same time. Another area that's been getting some changes is this corner right here. So this is my old workbench top, and I made this new bench top because we've been working upstairs, and the old owner had made all of these shelving, the storage upstairs. So all of these 2x4s were repurposed, and it was just nice getting a clean new bench. I didn't want to throw away the old top. Actually, I kind of like it. It has a lot of character. For the remaining of the wood that was salvaged upstairs, I wanted to build a workbench here, and it was extremely warped and not that easy to work with. So this was really put together to get some storage, nothing fancy at all. And these drawers were old from my old table saw stand when I used to have the job site table saw. And now I have the larger saw, and I had to disassemble that stand, but I still wanted to use the drawers. So that is where these drawers went now, but it's kind of nice to have this bench here, like extra storage and an extra work surface. And I was able to move the table that was over here, over there. This table here now, I have more in the center of the shop, and this is to be the workstation for all the wax polishes, which I'm just about to remake a whole big batch and restock the shop. And one of the reasons why I haven't really done that up till this point is because I just haven't had like a good place to do it. So I want to create like a workstation that is dedicated just for that. So at this point, this is in the middle of the shop here. I guess that's really the one thing in general that is always tricky to figure out exactly where things should be, like what's a good workflow, what works and what doesn't work, which is why I like things that, yeah, first of all, that are on wheels and casters, and then like a situation with the dust collection where things are not super permanent, where you can change things as you figure out what works and what doesn't work. When you have a table in the middle of the room, though, the thing is like, how do you get power to it? Because I have a crock pot and things, and I need an outlet. So then I just pulled down the ceiling extension cord, which is something I actually really like this thing. I have 2 of them in the shop, and I use them a lot. And that way I can just get an outlet and plug in whatever I need. But when I'm not using it, I can get it out of the way. I also find this really effective like when you're sanding or you're doing something in the middle of the room, because it's a long cord, so you have a lot of flexibility in terms of where you go. I hope that gave a little bit of an insight into this dust collection, organization, wire situation. It's definitely a bit of a challenge figuring out how to do this best, and I really like to take the approach that you take one thing at a time, see what works, and then go from there. Like I mentioned earlier, there's been a lot of work going into the shop this past year. We've only been here for about a year, and this looked nothing like this a year ago. So I'm working on a video right now that is going to be all about the changes that actually happened that took it from the garage into the shop. I'm going to be putting the exact products that I'm using, the fittings and all of that, because it is very confusing if you are looking to set up a similar system, and I'll put that in the description below with some more details. But otherwise, thank you guys so much for watching. Yeah, let me know if you have any questions, if there was anything that was unclear in the comments below, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye!